Welcome to the latest episode of Five on the Floor on the Five Reasons Sports Network. Thanks for joining us on your favorite podcast app on Apple Podcasts, on Android, to recommend Spotify. Also, check out the Five Reasons YouTube channel for all the content around the South Florida sports spectrum. Also, off the floor, that's our Discord server, $2.99 per month. Link right here in the description. Bypass the Apple upcharge. You get access to 10 different channels, plus the stage shows. You don't want to leave Adele alone in there. Check it out. It's off the floor. Link right here in the description. Again, everything good from Twitter we put there. Also, Prize Picks, use the code 5. We're gearing up for football season. Lots of stuff coming up related to that. Use the code 5, F-I-V-E. Get in there now. Start playing. Get used to it. Get your $50, and you'll be ready once the Dolphins take on the Colts in week 1. Daniel Jones starting against the Dolphins. I think I'll take the under. PrizePicks.com. Use the code F-I-V-E. And now, today's episode.
Mercy, luxurious, Heat Nation, yeah, Mercy and Lago, down to Biscayne, yeah, 5 on the floor, ride for my dogs, where here's the thing, you can check the score, hustle hard, couple scars, wearing bubble frauds, down to Biscayne. Kept the floor playing, got it all banned. Y'all seen the block, stop with one hand. And Pat we trust, Inspire have the guts. We're here to bring the heat, y'all can hang it up.
Welcome to Five on the Floor, a daily insider show on the Miami Heat and the NBA, featuring Ethan Skolnick, Greg Sylvander, Alex Toledo, Brady Hawk, and others from the Five Reasons Sports Network. Also, make sure to subscribe to Off the Floor for the most heat anywhere.
All right, welcome back to Five on the Floor. Here's today's floor plan. I'm Ethan Skolnick. You can follow me at Ethan J. Skolnick and at Five Reasons Sports as I try to fix the mic here. I think I forgot to do that. We got Greg Sylvander. See, he took some time off, not because he wanted to, not because he was playing hooky, because he wasn't feeling good. And now he's better, right? And prepared, unlike me. Ready? You do this?
Can you believe COVID still happens? It's 2025 and we're still dealing with that. The first week back in school, and what happens? The kids bring home COVID. But we're back. We're back.
That's crazy. Well, the whole household, hopefully everybody back to normal here. If not then soon. Yeah, and when it comes back to school too, plus not that we want our children to go back to school and get our lives back in order, but we kind of want our children to go back to school and get our lives back in order. And then like, oh wait, they're back. They're not going anywhere. They're staying here. That's the way that this works out. All right, we're going to get to some topics that we have not had a chance to get to recently. Additionally, check out the 2006 championship series that we're doing here. I've done a couple of the episodes. We're going to do more. You and I have done one, but also Mateo Mayorga has been doing them, and we've already posted the ones with Eric Reed and with Ira Winderman. So we appreciate both people, fine gentlemen, for popping up here on the podcast. And also I think he's going to get Mike Wallace, Tim Reynolds, and others. So plenty of that going to be here on Five on the Floor, as well as the State of the Heat episodes. We are 5 through those, and I have more to get to. So we will get to everyone else's perspective on this. I'm not going to not all 20 people who cover the Heat for us, but there's a couple more that if I don't get them in, they're going to be the state of Ethan is going to be, in the doghouse. All right, let's get to a couple of things that we've seen lately, and I'm doing some writing for Sports Illustrated lately, as on the Heat page, as is Alex. And so I'm a little bit more attuned to some of these aggregated stories that get out there. But in some cases, there's some original content and people are trying to get through the dog days. And one of the things that was done was by Greg Schwartz, who I'm familiar with over at Bleacher Report, where he ranked the 30 starting lineups in the NBA. And this is not an easy exercise, actually. First thing, you have to be able to project who's going to be in each starting lineup. For most teams, it's fairly apparent maybe who 4 of the players are going to be, and then you have to kind of figure out the 5th. With the Heat, there's a couple of variables here, and I don't know that there is a set starting lineup at this point, but there is a starting lineup that most people think it's going to be. I'm not convinced that's going to be it, but the sort of consensus from those who are looking at the roster, and I understand how they got to this because Khalil Ware started at the end of last year. But so basically they're looking at it as Tyler Hero, Norm Powell. No one's really expecting at this point, even though we tipped it, nobody's really expecting at this point that Norm's going to come off the bench and try to reprise his run for Sixth Man of the Year. I think we're kind of in agreement that Spo, when he looks at it, is going to say, okay, well, our two best guards are Norm Powell and Tyler Hero. I'm going to put them on the floor and see how this works. So basically, Powell, Hero, Wiggins, who there's been a lot of, I know you reported this, but then also the Heat are leaning into this in their social media of how much Wiggins is smiling. There's been a couple of those posts lately. So I guess he's happier to be here. So, and again, we projected he was going to be the starting small forward. And then obviously Bam, who, by the way, we're going to do an episode on Bam because Bam is really close to a whole bunch of milestones with the Heat, closer than people think. He's going to end up like third in like most of the major categories by the end of this, by halfway through this season. So that's another
Playoff stats
but
too.
playoff stats as well. Well, yeah. Well, unfortunately, I haven't been on a chance to accumulate a ton of those lately. But yes, and hopefully there'll be a chance this year. But then the fifth spot is kind of the wild card, I think, and that's Kalel Ware and I think Nikola Jovic. Now, they could go a different direction, but those would be the two that would make the most sense. And I think it's possible, Greg, it could be Jovic for a couple of reasons. One, he looks great. He's playing great overseas. And Spo seems ecstatic every time he talks about him or he sees him. It doesn't necessarily mean he would start him. He could close him. He close with him. He can make him the sixth man. But as Alex and I have discussed, and before we get to the rest of this, I'll let you jump in here. It sort of balances the rotation a little bit better on a team that doesn't have a lot of bigs to start Nico and bring Ware off the bench, and you're kind of protecting for foul trouble there too. I mean, do you think it's a slam dunk, so to speak? Sorry, that it's going to
Starting
be
lineup
Ware.
So there's a few things. I'll start by saying this is not an easy exercise, and it also is very much representative of off-season content. I applaud Greg Swartz for trying to get through this entire list, all the teams and all the projected starting lineups. However, I don't know that this Heat starting lineup is going to be the one that, like, I think this is how it's going to go. I think that this is the lineup Spoelstra is going to try first. I think that it'll be kind of the starters initially. But Ethan, I disagree with a lot of people who think that there's no way that Norm could come off the bench or that Nico could slide in Ware's spot and they play a little bit smaller. I think that all those things are absolutely in play. And this may be the lineup that Spoelstra tries first. It's the one on paper that I think everybody maybe says has the highest ceiling of any lineup if you really like in concept. But the first 3-game losing streak or the first, 4 blown leads early in November, like that, you're going to see lineup changes. And I just can't get away from the fact that Davion Mitchell can defend in a way that neither of the guys in the backcourt that we're noting for this exercise, and we'll get to where the Heat are ranked in a minute. I don't know that backcourt will find its way all the way to – it may be the lineup that closes in the backcourt, but I don't know that they're going to start that way forever. And I agree with you. I think Spo has shown he'll go small despite what everyone wants. So if this Bam Kalel Ware thing doesn't look great right off the bat and need to mix it up, Nico's the first guy that I go to. So while we should put Wade in this obviously as a talking point, I just want to be careful that everyone doesn't just put this in pen. It should be in pencil.
Yeah, I'm with you. And there's also the idea of trying to motivate your players, and we know that Spo, has it kind of in the back of his mind that he needs to keep a carrot in front of Ware to get him really running. And it could be competing for the starting job in training camp. And then if he does well enough, even if maybe Jovic outplays him, he gives it to Ware. And like I said, sees what this looks like. But I don't think it's permanent. I don't even really think it's sound. And I know a lot of people disagree with me on this, especially at the network, but I'm not a huge fan of the Ware Bears, but the Ware Bear. That's a new way to look at this. The Ware Bear, Care Bear, or the Wham start. It's Saturday morning, or the Wham starting lineup, so to speak. And I don't know. We have some in the network who are going to disagree with me about this and think it has the higher upside, and perhaps it does. But this idea that you need to start 2 bigger players, or that because we categorize Bam as a center if he's going to play with Jovic, even though, I mean, I don't know that Ware necessarily plays with more force than Jovic does. I don't know. I think sometimes we're getting caught in semantics here a little bit. He needs to play with a true center. Well, yeah, but if the true center is not boxing out, then that's not really helping Bam. I mean, Bam's best rebounding year in terms of his efficiency as a rebounder was when he was playing with PJ
I
Tucker,
was about to
who
just
was
say, like, just
right.
the archetypes are, and I'll just slip this in, and then you can pick it back up. The best Heat teams that have had Bam Adebayo on the court and like this build were iterations that included PJ Tucker and Jay
Yeah,
Crowder. So I
right.
think that it's a little bit overthinking it to just like have a mandate that two bigs need to
Mm.
play with each, like Bam and another big need to be up front. There's some matchups that are going to absolutely require
Yes.
that, but I don't know that that needs to be standard operating procedure day over day.
Yeah, you need the extra force inside. I'm not arguing with that, but do you need it playing with Bam all the time? That's the part that I don't necessarily agree. But he obviously disagrees with me because he's been pushing for Ware to play with him, right? So he doesn't see it the same way that I do. So I guess we should defer to him on this. But Spo, it does feel like, okay, that Spo has kind of come to this perspective. I don't think or has been nudged to this perspective. I don't think it's that he's the one who has believed all along. I need to put, as you mentioned, whether it was Crowder, whether it was, I mean, he tried to force the Highsmith, same archetype. I mean, who was the one they picked up? The one from that was a total disaster.
Mo
From
Harkless.
Thank you. Right. Right. All right. If you remember that, right? Did he start Harkless the first game with Bam, or did he start Myers Leonard? I
It
forgot.
was, I
It
can't
was like a
remember.
rotational.
The other guy was Derek Williams that we thought, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, there've been all these guys that is like they throw them out there, but none of them are the wear type. So it's like the idea that Spo suddenly changed his mind on this. I don't think that's the case. I just think he has someone who's more talented now, who could do it next to Bam, who has higher upside than all of these guys have had. And I'm not going to argue with that, but I don't think he's going to force it for very long. I'm with you. And we didn't like the starting lineup he started with last year either. And by the way, Jovic was in that one. He was in that one with Rozier, and we all said, "Oh, that's not going to last very long," and it didn't. All right, so we'll actually get to where the Heat are ranked with the starting lineup that Greg Schwartz went with here. Before we do, want to mention a great sponsor of the 5 Reasons Sports Network, our friend Lynette. You can find her at insurancebylynette.com. That's insurancebylynette.com. Car insurance, homeowners insurance, renters insurance. You can find it all there at insurancebylynette.com. Aggressive insurance agency, huge Miami Heat fan, good friend of the program. 954-581-8800. That's 954-581-8800. Again, she can handle everything for you. If you have a bad driving record, she is absolutely the person to go to. She will find something for you. Trust me. If nobody thinks you can drive, she will find an insurance option that believes that you can drive. Although we hope that you learn how to drive. 954-581-8800. Okay. Let's get to this list here. I'm going to go from back to let's start with the bottom here, and we'll go to the top. 30th, the Brooklyn Nets. I will acknowledge that there's one player in here I didn't even know who it was. So, yes. And by the way, they don't have Haywood Highsmith in their starting lineup, although that could change. I think this is a terrible place for Haywood to go, but that's a whole nother podcast. He's the kind of player who he needs to be like a connector,
On a winning team.
defense
Yeah.
on a winning team. Okay. Number 29, the Jazz got a couple rookies starting in there, Ace Bailey and Walter Clayton Jr. But Lauri Markkanen sticks out like a sore thumb. That's like the polar bear meme. I don't really know what they're doing with him right now. The Wizards. It's crazy to see CJ McCollum and Nick and Chris Middleton in the same starting lineup, but this is obviously transition year for them as they're trying to find a direction. It appears that they have, but the Bulls, they don't have Josh Giddey in this starting lineup right now because they're still dealing with his contract situation. Although I would anticipate he'd be there, but I don't know. You can see why they want to move Vucevic. I'll just leave it there. All right, the Pelicans. After that, another team, I don't know. I mean, they have Zion in the starting lineup. How long is that going to I forgot Jordan Poole was traded there. Charlotte, close to your heart, 25th. The Blazers, that's where Drew Holiday is now, as Dame watches, 24th. The Kings, I don't. There's a report. We should talk about Malik Monk at some point because he would help the Heat, but I don't think they have anything to go get him. And obviously he played with Bam in college, but they're trying to sign Westbrook reportedly, so they want to dump Monk to do that. And now they've got Dennis Schroeder starting for like his 19th team with
I
the
have no
old
clue what's
Bulls.
happening in Sacramento right now.
I don't get it. The Bucks. It is hard to be the 22nd ranked starting lineup when you have the best player in the East on your team. But if the other players are Cole Anthony, Kevin Porter Jr., Kyle Kuzma, and Miles Turner, that might be about right.
I'm just waiting for the Shams tweet that says that he's requested a trade.
Yes. The Suns, no Durant. Devin has got some work to do out there. I don't like Jalen Green with him. We'll see how that all plays out. But I know people like the trade for them, but it's not going to look very good at the start. Raptors, some talent there, but again, I don't know how long RJ Barrett's going to be there. That's 20th. So those are the only teams, as I get to this, that are below the Heat. And here's the Heat starting lineup as Greg Schwartz has it. Hero, Powell, Wiggins, Bam, and Ware. Let me read you what Greg Schwartz said. The Miami Heat projected starting five, much like the roster overall, looks like a solid yet uninspiring group, even in the Eastern Conference. Powell was terrific last season for the Los Angeles Clippers and will inject some much-needed life into this offense. Adebayo is coming off a down first half. I would agree with that. Not down year. And Ware needs to continue to build off a strong rookie season. There's reason for optimism here, but not having an offensive alpha is going to plague this starting five. Tyler would disagree with that. And the stats kind of disagree with that too. I mean, Tyler's season as an offensive player was probably a top 15 season in the NBA if you include the efficiency and all that. I understand we're not going to say he's a top 5 two-way player. We're not going that far, but they kind of have an offensive alpha, and then Heat fans will say, well, not in the clutch, not in the playoffs. We know everything else is going to be said, but I don't know if I would go that far. But let me get to a couple of teams that are right ahead of them.
I'm
and then
glad that's where you're
me.
going because that's exactly what I wanted to address.
Okay, so I'll go into the Mavericks. D'Angelo Russell, remember, Kyrie's still out. D'Angelo Russell, Klay Thompson, Cooper Flagg, Anthony Davis, and Derek Lively the second. Then the Celtics, the no Tatum Celtics. And by the way, I don't think this is right because I read recently that Anthony Simons is going to come off the bench and Peyton Pritchard, sixth man of the year, is going to start. But they have it as Simons, Derek White, Jaylen Brown, Sam Hauser, and Neemias Queta. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, but I'm probably not. The Pacers, no Halliburton, no Miles Turner anymore. Nembhard, Mathurin, who is a pop candidate, a lot of people think, and I agree with that. Nesmith, Siakam, and Isaiah Jackson at center. And then the Pistons, Cade Cunningham, Jaden Ivey, Ausar Thompson, Tobias Harris, Jalen Duren. Are you going to object to the Boston or Indiana ones?
I think first, let me acknowledge that I mentioned Derek Williams earlier in this episode, and that's a completely different era of Heat basketball. That just happens sometimes. So bear with me, y'all.
Yes.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
The thing that jumps out at me is that it's pretty humbling that Indiana and Boston are both kind of in mulligan seasons where like nobody's expecting anything from them because their stars out for the whole year. Yet both of those starting fives, so they're like depleted starting fives, are ranked ahead of Miami's full strength starting five. Philadelphia at 14, I think, is too high. I don't know why people continue to do this with Philadelphia. It's ridiculous. And they have Maxey, McCain, Paul George, Kelly Oubre, and Embiid as the 14th best starting lineup in basketball. I don't see that either. But I just wanted to point out that, we talked on a recent episode about how the Heat are not, it was the schedule episode with Brady, where we kind of said like they have to make a name for themselves and kind of prove themselves as a group. The fact that the Celtics and the Pacers, two teams that are basically kind of, what are they playing for this year? Neither know that they're not going to the title without Tatum or without Halliburton. To have those starting five still ahead of Miami, if that's how it comes to fruition, that's a rough thing. I mean, you can't invest in this group long term if you're ultimately not better than the two teams that are going to get back their stars next season? You're muted.
Well, there you go. I'm with you. Those are the two that jumped out to me actually when I wrote something about this for SI, is that if the Heat are behind two teams that, you know, are actively sort of downshifting for the future because of their injuries, then yeah, that's a problem. Like I no question about it. And I understand again that Boston came into last season as the favorite in the East, and Indiana ended up representing the conference in the final. And then both have, at this point, I guess we got to give it to them. Both have proven coaches, um, that have had success. I mean, I'm a big fan of the Indiana coach. I think that Carlisle will figure some things out, but
They should have never fired him in the first place. Anyway, that's
no,
another
no.
story.
Well, that right, exactly. But my whole thing is that, again, they're not. You're right as far as where they're trying to get to this year. All that those teams are really trying to do, and it's a little bit different for the two, but for Boston, it's keep yourself as attractive as possible when you're going to get the next person that you're going to go pair with Tatum. And that's never been a free agent destination, but I'm just talking about in a trade, have player maybe that is interested in going there. And then once you start to get the good reports about Tatum coming back, this depending on what you do with Brown, which that's the other piece of this, but they're probably going to flip Anthony Simons. So even putting him in the starting lineup, I don't know that he makes this to the end of the season in Boston. Obviously, look, Hauser's not a long-term option there. I watched their summer league team play this year. I don't think they've got they haven't been really a terrific developmental organization over the past few years. I don't see them making some kind of crazy run this year, that is gonna, like we've seen when players go out before, the whole Ewing theory, like player goes out and others respond around it. I don't think they have the pieces there to end up being like a 45, 46 win team. I don't. I do think that he'd have the pieces to do that, even though I don't necessarily think it's going to happen. I've said that the high end upside is 47. But the Heat need to finish ahead of Boston this year, really. I mean, if Tatum's going to be out the entire season and Tyler and Bam as your two top players, when you're trying to win, can't get you ahead of that team that just dumped Porzingis, lost Tatum, traded Drew, then what are we doing here? Now, the Indiana side's a little bit different because that's a style thing, and again, a coach thing, and I kind of think that the improvements we're going to see with increased opportunities from Nembhard and Mathurin in particular, who are both young players, like it doesn't feel like they're really changing their course, right? Like they're going to continue to lean into young guys. Halliburton was bad for the first third of last year, by the way.
They'll
People
keep
forget
playing
about that.
fast. To your point, like it's
Right.
a lot of that. They're just they're able to have interchangeable pieces in that kind of play style. So I could see that their regular season may not look a whole lot different. It's more of like the playoff success that I think that's where Tyrese Halliburton really, raises that, level of that team. So to your point, it is more Boston sticking out. And I'm not going to let go of the Philadelphia thing at 14.
Well, let's talk about Philly before we get out of here. And first thing, when you look at the top 10 starting lineups, again, you see where the Heat have worked to get a star to really, to elevate into that company. Although the Heat have higher profile players than a lot of these teams now. The Heat are actually going to have, in their 9-man rotation, they're going to have 7 first-round picks and 2 seconds. And the only 2 seconds are going to be Larson and Powell. Everybody else in this rotation is going to be a first-round pick. That's very different from previous Heat years with a whole bunch of undrafted. I get why they're doing what they're doing with Philly, okay? Because it's all on Embiid. Like, if Embiid is going to stay healthy, there are some fit issues, but,
He's
Paul
that
George,
good. Yeah.
he's that good. But if Paul George is not totally cooked, if McCain is okay coming off the knee, I mean, their bench isn't bad either, and then of course there's Maxey. I understand from a talent perspective, if you could trust Embiid, it might even be bottom of the top 10, but I don't trust Embiid, so that's the problem. The Spurs at 13 is a bit of a projection, although obviously the talent is there. I mean, Fox, Castle, you're not even putting the rookie in there, Harper. The Hawks,
A lot of people buying the Hawks this year, and I still am reluctant to. The Hawks are the Hawks.
Well, Jalen Johnson was becoming their best player last year. If that continues, that makes them better. I don't think they're going anywhere with Trey as their best player. I understand as a facilitator and all that, but if you're leaning on Trey to be efficient on a consistent basis, shooting 25 times, half of them from 28 feet, no. If Jalen Johnson is what we thought he was last year before he got hurt, I mean, they have a very good defender at the 2 in Daniels, obviously. Risache showed signs last year. Porzingis will play 22 games, but in those 22 games, he'll help them. The Timberwolves, I still think there's some cracks with that starting lineup. But the thing is, once you get to 11, then you have starting lineups who've actually proven something together. And that's, I think, where the Heat are. And I think we can close it as this. I do think that the chemistry between Hero and Powell, if it clicks from the very beginning,
That would be
could
huge.
be different. Huge. Could be different from what we've seen before. If Bam gets off to a good start, anchoring the defense, and Wiggins is consistently engaged, okay, then the fifth guy in that starting lineup, whether it's Ware or it's Jovic, only enhances it. If the Hero and Powell thing doesn't work, then the lineup's going to look bad. And I'm wondering how the two of them are going to handle, full court pressure if that's brought to them. All these other things, but Tyler's better off the ball, better on the ball than he's given credit for. As much as we want him off the ball more often, I think Jovic developing as a ball handler gets Hero off the ball a little bit more, which is one of the reasons I like to see Nico in the starting lineup. I think if Ware is starting, then Tyler's going to have the ball in his hands even more. I don't want to see Wiggins initiating a ton. We saw some of that last year. I don't think it looks great, but I think as a secondary attacker in the starting lineup, like there are things about this lineup I kind of like. But to me, Greg, I'll let you close it. I think it starts with Tyler and Norm. If Tyler and Norm are seamless as some think they're going to be, we had Mark Jones on. He thinks then I think this could be a better starting lineup than we've seen in some recent years, because a lot of the recent starting lineups we had were, how's this guy going to fit with Jimmy's play style? Like that's a lot of what we've talked about. As much as you'd love to have Jimmy, we don't have that issue anymore to look at.
And the other thing I think, and obviously people will snicker that I sneak this in. I think that Bam is going to have a better season than he had last year. So one thing that could also change this is if he has an all-star level campaign next to that backcourt working. And then obviously, like, I think Wiggins is a lot better of a player than maybe we saw, even though his stats were okay in Miami. I think that there's impact that he can bring, that if that actually comes to fruition, you're right. Like this group could be better than expected. This is setting up as a Heat season where people are surprised by this team. Like that's typically how this goes, right? But if it doesn't, I just think that the starting lineup could ultimately change. And it does really come down to that backcourt working, and then Bam kind of having a back to all-star level season. And then the Heat obviously could rise up these rankings. But for now, it's humbling to be at 19 with your full strength team when you see kind of what other groups are going through, or Giannis in Milwaukee. They need a good start, and you got to hope that it works early. That's how I think about it.
Yeah, and I think that what we've gotten to on this starting lineup, that starting lineup that Greg Schwartz is evaluating, that's their highest upside starting lineup. Like, okay, if Powell and Hero work, if Bam and Ware work, if Wiggins becomes again sort of the fallback, hey, we need a guy to get us 18 to 20, cut, hit some shots off the mid-range and defend. Like, I understand that lineup has the highest ceiling, but I'm with you that I think 2 weeks into the season, it's going to be a different lineup. And I think the more likely change is Jovic for Ware, but I can see how some might say, okay, bring Norm off the bench and
they're getting
start
cooked by
Davion.
quick guards. Davion's going to find his way on the damn court. So
right, or 35 minutes.
Yeah.
By the way, but if he's playing 35 minutes, then Norm's going to be at the 3. All right, that's what's going to end up happening. Wiggins is going to be at the 4, and We're going to be having when that's going to be the closing lineup anyway. All right, Greg, appreciate it. We'll have more episodes to come. I know you got to run, but glad to see you back healthy here again, and I'll get my act together at some point. Have a good one.
Thank you for listening to the Five on the Floor on the 5 Reasons Sports Network. After all, someone needs to listen to my dad.